We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Sunday. It's football day for a lot of folks. Yeah, I know there were some games, or at least one game on Thursday. There's one coming up Monday, but Sunday's the day for football. I'm not as big a sports fan as I once was, but if I've got nothing else going and I'm around at the time when, for me, the Vikings are playing, I'll sit down and watch for a while until it gets frustrating. Then I'll go do something else. If it's a good game, I may hang through the whole thing. But it's weird when I think back to my younger days and I was so connected to sports and I watched all of them from beginning to end. And I'm having a harder time doing it these days. It tends to bore me after a time. Um, I am one of the consummate people that will ignore a sport until they go into the playoffs and then jump on that fucking bandwagon. I'm not too proud to tell you that. That's what I'll do. You know, there's a lot of things to entertain and inform you in this world now with the internet and streaming and all of that. And if it's not doing that, there's no point in wasting time consuming that particular product. So maybe that's how I look at what the situation is with sports. Or maybe I'm just old and don't give a shit about shit, except certain things. Got a chance to see my granddaughter last night. I was by myself. I had to drop off some clothes that Grandma bought for our granddaughter. We noticed that some of her clothes were getting tighter because she's getting bigger. So give Grandma a little bit of time and she'll buy all kinds of clothes. That's why I've always told my son, no matter how bad anything is going with you or how limited time you have, when it comes to Grandma and Grandpa and that little girl's uncle, she won't want for anything. We live to go out and get her stuff and keep her comfortable and happy. So I got to see her yesterday. We messed around a little bit, played some games, played some hide and seek. It's always fun. Watch the little Coco Melon. Now, I may not be able to sit and watch the whole Vikings game today, but I did watch 4 episodes of Coco Melon, about 15 minutes apiece, and had a great time because my granddaughter happened to love the program. Very learning and educational, teaches you a lot of things. Because of my age, I knew all those things, but I thought it was good for the kid. Anyhow, let's get down to business. Let's talk about some emails that we had come in as of yesterday. It's always good to hear from the folks. This one comes from Fred. And Fred, you're telling me that you were going to come on the show at some point. That was a long time ago. So let's get on the stick here, bud. You wanted to be on the show. I'm happy to have you on the show. You've done a great job in previous times. So let's set that up. Anyway, this is his email. He says, "Hey, Mike, I was listening to Saturday's show and wanted to respond to the listener who asked about how Tommy Tuberville could single-handedly hold up military promotions. This is what I love about doing a show like this. I didn't know all the details of why he was able to do that, and I kind of skipped through it fairly quickly, but I knew there was somebody out there that would give me all the answers. Damned if Fred didn't. Tommy Tuberville could single-handedly hold up military promotions, and the simple answer is because of unanimous consent. A senator will ask for unanimous consent on a bill, promotion, etc., and if all 100 senators agree, whatever they are voting on passes. It's a way to streamline the process. What the Senate is trying to do is approve all 300 or so promotions in a package deal. However, due to Senate rules, this can only be done by unanimous consent. Even though the vote is 99-1, the rules state that everyone must agree in order for whatever the Senate is voting on to pass. The Senate could vote on each promotion individually, but this would be extremely time-consuming, as the Senate would be required to hold a separate hearing for each candidate to be promoted before holding an individual vote. So you can see what's happening here. Tommy Tuberville knows this it's not really a loophole. It's a loophole for him, and he knows he can blockade this shit for as long as he wants. And therein lies the problems. He's getting a lot of heat from the military, from his home state, from a lot of people. It's time the Democrats in the Senate start to kick things up a notch and go after this motherfucker, because this is getting ridiculous. Fred goes on to say it's a ridiculous rule, but this is how this piece of shit Tuberville can hold up 300 military promotions. Hope all is well with you and your family, and I'm sure we'll talk soon, Fred. Yes, we will, Fred. I'm counting on you to give me an email and come on the show. So there you have a proper explanation for the question that was asked of me. I'm sure you learned something there, and I know I learned something there. So thank you, Fred. Next one comes from somebody by the name of Lutz, Lutz. Hi, Mike. I'm a big fan and I follow you on TikTok. I'm wondering if you happen to catch this. Fonnie Willis schools Jim Jordan with brutal correction for his total ignorance. And then there's a link to Huffington Post. We've talked about that letter, and she didn't hold anything back at that point. Fonnie Willis essentially told Jim Jordan in lawyer speak to go fuck himself. Love it. Lutz. Yes, she did. That's what I like about Fonnie. She doesn't mince too many words. She goes at these motherfuckers and doesn't hold back. You got to wonder if Jim continues to play this fucking game with Fonnie Willis, if she doesn't indict him for obstruction of justice. Wouldn't that be awesome? All right, this next one. This one comes from Old Soul, and this is a long one. Hey, Boomer, this is going to be a bit of a long one, but I think it's important. In advance, thank you. After seeing your thoughts on Tuberville and hearing about his denying military promotions, I sat down last night with my daughter and her friends. I wanted to know if they knew what was going on, and if so, what they thought. These kids are far more aware than I was at their age. They know exactly what's going on and have strong opinions. The Republican Party is blaming woke on the decline in the military recruitment, but it's quite the opposite. They've hijacked what it means to be a patriot. When our young people think about the American flag and what it means to be patriotic, they see MAGA and the images from January 6th. They want nothing to do with the extremism, the racism, the bigotry, and the hate. Something I've talked about before. My wife came to me with this, and she was upset by the fact when we were approaching July 4th, that how the MAGA fucks have kind of co-opted the American flag. And now when we see it, we get a different image in our mind than we did when we were younger. It was a patriotic symbol for a long time, and now all we can think is fucking MAGA. That's got to stop. We've got to change that. Old Soul goes on to say they don't want to sign up to serve and protect rights that will be denied them. It's not just women and minorities. Caucasian youths don't want to be part of a military either. They don't want to be surrounded by ignorance and hate. Their generation wants everyone to have a seat at the table with unique ideas and different perspectives, and are appalled by those who look like them, who choose violence and hate. The thing is, I think Republicans are aware of this. I don't think Tuberville is blocking military promotions because women in the military are allowed to travel to access medical care. Yes, it's part of it, but there's an even more sinister reason. Tuberville doesn't want women in the military. He doesn't want minorities serving either. But since there is currently an all-out assault on women's rights and sexism on the rise in this country, he's using these divisions as an opportunity to target women in the military. He understands he won't have as much pushback as he would have pre-overturning Roe v. Wade. On July 11, 2023, Tuberville stated on national television, white nationalists aren't racist. He did say that. They are American. Well, they are fucking racist. That is basically in the fucking bylaws. Following this, it took days of pressure for him to walk back his earlier statement. It was like pulling teeth to get him to publicly say white nationalists are racist. Republicans have been phasing out diversity, equity, and inclusion in the military with a goal of making it less appealing for women and minorities to sign up, while simultaneously make it more appealing to white nationalists and extremists. His response to top-ranking military officials from the Army, Navy, and U.S. Marine Corps criticizing his behavior was to say that they should be building bigger boats, and he had the unmitigated goal to chastise them for not personally calling him. First, I don't think he has the courage to pick up the phone from either of those officials. Second, he doesn't deserve a personal phone call. America doesn't negotiate with terrorists, foreign or domestic. Today, I saw Tuberville slam the Navy for having poems on the side of their aircrafts. Apparently, Tuberville isn't aware the national anthem is a poem, but then again, why would anyone expect him to know this when he didn't even know the three branches of government when he was elected in 2020? I'd be willing to bet that he still couldn't list the three branches. My grandmother always said ignorant, dumb men like Tuberville had to get naked to count to 21. I didn't understand what she meant by that until I got a little older. Tuberville and Republicans are attempting hold on a second. I got lost here in the letter. Hold on just a second. So, Tuberville and Republicans are attempting to remove the military's policy of being apolitical. They are no longer looking for individuals who join as a way to see the world and pay for college. They don't want creativity and individual thought. They want white nationalists who don't question and will blindly follow orders like robots. This is the goal. It's not only about women's health care. There were more than 80 defendants charged in the January 6th attack who has ties to the military. Most of those with a military background were veterans. Now, the FBI categorized the Proud Boys as an extremist group with ties to white nationalism, and per military.com, the Proud Boys were formed by veterans. Among the indicted men were an Army combat veteran with a Purple Heart and two Marines who served in infantry and logistics. Enrique Tarrio was the only Proud Boy leader indicted who wasn't a veteran. These are the men that Tuberville and Republicans want to lead the U.S. military, and that's why they're making it as unwelcoming for minorities and women as possible. Even though the Russian military are having their butts handed to them by Ukraine, Republicans still look to them as a symbol of strength and masculinity. They're looking to recruit young men on a power trip, immersed in gun culture with a chip on their shoulder. Our military leaders recognize the danger in accepting these types of recruitments and are working to keep them out of the military. This is why Tuberville and Republicans criticize the U.S. military by calling them woke, as if that's a bad thing. They say our military is weak. They don't want the military to produce creative talent such as Morgan Freeman, Bob Barker, Elvis Presley, and Humphrey Bogart. I'll give Hugh Hefner an honorable mention because not too many people know he was a veteran. They don't want leaders such as Medgar Evers or Michael Garrett, and they won't dare promote Black excellence in the military. Some examples would include the Tuskegee Airmen. Instead, they prop up men like Timothy McVeigh and the leaders of the Proud Boys. After listening to my daughter and her friends describe the U.S. military in a negative way, I started digging and realized how deep Tuberville holding up military promotions go. I stopped looking at what Tuberville has been doing and began to see the reason behind his action, which opened my eyes to how effective and strategic Republicans have been in breaking down our institutions. There's an assault on women's rights, the rights of the LGBTQ plus communities, immigrants, minorities, education, and now the military. To say I am disturbed and alarmed is an understatement. I thought we could stop Project 2025 with the 2024 election, but that won't be enough. Republicans are planning ahead for the next Republican administration. It doesn't matter if a Republican is elected in 2024 or 2054. The goal is to corrupt all of our institutions and have people in place to enact their agenda as soon as we have a Republican-led administration, and they don't mind waiting. The American people are the prey, and the moment Republicans are given the opportunity, they will pounce, take over, and rule with an iron fist. I don't write this to scare anyone or make anyone live in constant state of fear and panic. I write this because we all need to be informed. We need to understand the end game with the Republicans and not allow ourselves to become distracted with their antics. We need to vote in every election, local and federal, as if our lives depended on it, because it does. With each vote, we need to weed out those who aim to destroy the democracy and attempt to regress this country back to a time where we were all not treated equally. A time where rights were for some, but not for all. A time where American dream was just that, a dream. We got this. We just have to stay focused and not become complacent. We can't afford to normalize Trumpism. We can't allow ourselves to be beaten down to the point where we give up and no longer speak the truth and push back. Along the way to rooting out extremism, we will undoubtedly have to deal with those like Tuberville. His assault on the military needs to be stopped. He can't be allowed to continue to weaken our military and make us vulnerable as a country. The Republican Party has options to force his hand. They can remove him from all of his committees. And I've said that too. Why don't they do that? Can you believe Tuberville currently sits on the Help Committee with jurisdiction over health, education, and training and labor legislation? We really need a system in place where those wanting certain committee assignments must apply and qualify, or at least have to shadow for a specified amount of time with a senior member before being seated. Why are they putting any and everyone on committees that affect the lives of vulnerable people? It's nonsensical how committees are assigned. I'd like to hear your thoughts and the listeners' thoughts on how we can allow freshmen to serve on committees and participate while somehow keeping out bad faith actors like Tuberville. Republicans have the option to get rid of the UCA, Unanimous Consent Agreement, and put through military promotions without Tuberville. Democrats aren't without fault either. From my understanding, Schumer can take the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff's nomination to the floor. I can only think of two reasons as to why Schumer isn't doing this. Either he wants to make Republicans look worse than they already do, or it's out of fear. Democrats in the Senate are afraid if they do this, then Republicans will do the same the next time they have control of the Senate. This frustrates me to no end because we cannot refuse to fight against Republicans and their regressive policies in fear of what their reactions will be. I voiced my concerns by going to schumer.senate.gov and left a comment. I also requested a virtual meeting. I'm not sure if Schumer or his staff will respond to this, but in addition to doing that, I've emailed every mainstream media producer I can think of with this as a show topic. Hopefully Schumer can be asked on the air why he isn't bringing the Joint Chiefs of Staff nomination to the floor and make him publicly defend his lack of action. At a bare minimum, instead of reporting on Tuberville's actions, they can do a segment questioning why his behavior is allowed to continue with little pushback. Hopefully a producer will find this newsworthy, fingers crossed. Thanks for reading my email and using your podcast to get the word out. I greatly appreciate it, and I'm sure our servicemen and women do as well. This is completely off topic, but on September 8th, 1954, Ruby Bridges was born. I wouldn't have been able to live and tell the tale of the roughest parts of my life if I didn't have women in my life showing me the picture of little Ruby. Picture of Ruby Bridges walking down the steps of William Frantz Elementary School, surrounded by an escort of federal marshals. There she was, 6 years old, tiny and with brown skin. She looked like me. She's an inspiration every time I put fingers to a keyboard, pen to paper, or speak the truth with my words. Happy 69th birthday, Ruby. Thank you, Boomer. That's the one thing that's nice about this show. All I have to do is read emails and I can inform the listeners as well as anything I can do. And I learn a lot too. I think that Old Soul makes a good point here. There are some things the reasonable minded Republicans could do to push Tommy Tuberville. There are certainly things the Democrats could do, so why not? Are the Democrats just trying to make him look worse? Okay, I get that. But at the same time, you are part and parcel to weakening our military. So I don't get it. You know, this is something we've seen over the years. Um, the Democrats have been in a position to do certain things and they don't because they're afraid that they're going to have to deal with the same thing at some later date when the Republicans get control. I don't think that should stop you. You should do what's right now, and whatever comes, deal with that when it happens. I think the good news here is, though, Old Soul, that we are on the precipice of huge changes in terms of our government and in terms of politics. You're worried about the Republicans getting back in control and using this 2025 project thing. I don't think they'll get the opportunity. I think what's going on now with the Republican Party and what will happen on 2024 election day will pretty much decimate the Republican Party. They will no longer exist in any sense or form because they will have no more power. They will get wiped out in the election on 2024 in November, and they're going to have to figure out how to retool, reimagine who they are. You would hope by that point, once they've been wiped out on 2024, that the whole concept, the whole ideology of 2025, the project, or any of the other bullshit they're doing, they're going to realize it doesn't work. You would assume they would have enough wherewithal to understand that and then decide they have to change things. But I will tell you this, in 2024 on election day, if the Democrats win the House, the Senate, and the presidency, if the Democrats are smart enough and aggressive enough, they will go full progressive over the next 4 years. They will get every possible bill passed, everything they can do for the middle class. And here's what will happen. The people of the country will be able to see the results of what went on when we had our government actually taking care of us. It will be beneficial to so many people. It will be almost impossible for a Republican to spew the shit they've been spewing. They'll have to come up with a different story. So I don't know that we just have to wait, tapping our foot for the time when the Republicans, as we know them now, to come back into power and take it to us. I don't think they're ever going to get that opportunity again. They're going to be taken apart at the seams between now and 2024. They're going to get rolled over in the 2024 election, and there's not going to be much left of them. They aren't going to have any power, and they aren't going to know what they can do. They may still spew conspiracy theories and maybe try to taint Joe Biden, but at that point, he's a lame duck. He isn't going to run again. Who gives a fuck what they do? And that's why I'm saying Joe Biden should take this opportunity and get as much passed for the people of this country so that when his legacy is considered, he could be considered one of the greatest presidents ever if he did the work and the Congress did what they were supposed to do and took care of people's health care, the student loans, everything, Medicare, Social Security. If they took care of all of that, codifying Roe v. Wade, if they did all that stuff over the next 4 years, they are going to be hard to beat. You notice the Republicans don't ever do this stuff because they know that if the people of this country realize the benefits that they should be getting, they'd never be able to come back from that. That's why they fight so hard to not have these things pass, whether it be Social Security or Medicare or health care or student loans or anything like that. For decades and decades, it's always been the rich dictating how we live and making sure we live paycheck to paycheck. If the Democrats are smart in 2024, should they get the power, if they go almost full progressive and just get us everything we can, it doesn't matter if the Republican Party gets in power again. If they do, they're going to have a bunch of people that have realized the benefits of some of the things the Democrats have suggested, and they're not going to be able to go back from that. It's going to be hard for them to do that. So we'll see what's going to happen, but I'm not as worried about the Republicans as you are, old soul, because I think they're pretty much done. And after the election in November of 2024, they're not going to know what to do. One thing they will know not what not to do is to do what they've been doing. The whole racism, the whole misogyny, anti-Semitism, the insurrection, the overturning the elections and undermining democracy, that didn't work. And at that point, they'll have to decide, do we keep doing it or do we change things up? I have to presume there are some smart people in the Republican Party, and they will have to change things up. I think if the Republican Party wants to save themselves and wants to compete with the Democrats who have gone more progressive, they're going to have to emulate a centrist, whether it be the Democrat or Republican, somebody in the center. And you know who's like that? Joe Biden. Joe Biden has been a centrist from the beginning, and they're going to have to emulate that if they're going to survive in this country. Because the one thing I haven't mentioned as yet that changes everything is the insurgence of young people voting. We know that millennials and Gen Zs will play a big role in 2024. We also know that by 2028, they are going to be the majority voting bloc. These people will not look at the Republicans and vote them in. So the Republicans really have no fucking choice at this point. They've got to change. By 2024 in the election, Donald Trump will be out of the picture. Well before that, Ron DeSantis will just be a passing nightmare. And all the rest of the fucks, they're going to have to decide what to do too. If they sided with Donald Trump and stuck with him till the end, well, their careers will be over. Those people that fought back may have some futures, but when you're talking about Republicans and conservatives who aren't in fact conservatives at all, that's the thing. That's the basis for the Republican Party. We're conservatives. We're about protecting the money and not leveraging our kids in the future. Well, there is no such thing as a conservative anymore, because while Donald Trump was president, he added $7 trillion to the debt. I don't care who you talk to, that is not a conservative strategy. I honestly believe that the Republicans have gone off the cliff and they're not coming back. Not the way we see them now. They continually lose. MAGA will lose its power, and the Republican Party will have to figure out some way to reconfigure what they do and what they believe and what they're trying to sell. And still, even then, I don't think they can capture the younger people in this country. The Republicans will die off by attrition. The young people will come to the ballot box, and these people will fade away one by one. That's what's going to happen. It's inevitable. It's logical. It makes sense. It's common sense. If the vast majority of people that are voting are millennials and Gen Zs, and that's probably 5 years away, they don't have a prayer. If they don't win in 2024, it's going to be impossible for them to come back. It's going to be impossible. So, as much as I appreciate all you wrote, Old Soul, and everything that you wrote makes a lot of sense, I learn a lot from you every time I read your email. And actually, I learn from every email that I read. Um, I don't look at it as fatalistic as some. I see the Republicans are on the run at this point, and they have no way of coming back. There's nothing they can grasp. There's no weapon they can use to come back. They are fading. They're falling off the cliff. And that will be a total destruction of the Republican Party. And I think a lot of us predicted that when Donald Trump became president as a Republican. We knew at the very least he was going to destroy the Republican Party, and good riddance. We also thought he might tear down the whole system. Well, he gave it one hell of a shot, didn't he? He wasn't able to tear down the whole system because he's an inept motherfucker. But let's just keep the pressure on, keep our thumbs on their heads, and make sure they're not in a position to come back. And then we don't have to worry about Project 2025 or anything like that. They won't even get the opportunity to even broach that issue. All right, we are going to take a break and we'll be right back. Well, if you watch the things that Donald Trump has been saying, some of the things that he's been writing, a lot of people will say that Donald Trump, he is angry. He is so mad. But that's not the case. Being angry, being mad, being the bully is just a cover for his deep set insecurities. He knows he's a piece of shit. He knows he's incompetent, but he tries to hide it with this facade, this blustery facade. And on Friday, Donald Trump unleashed his attack on Friday, targeting by name two current U.S. Department of Justice officials and several former DOJ officials, along with a well-known government watchdog group. Make no mistake, Donald Trump may be mad, but more so, he is scared shitless, and he doesn't really know where to turn. If you watch Donald Trump with the people around him, you have to wonder, why do they bend to him constantly, even though they know what he's doing is illegal or stupid or crazy? It's because Donald Trump's strategy is working with them. He pays them. And because he pays them, he feels like he can treat them like dirt and force them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And they do it. I've talked about this before. When you're in a situation with a guy like this, a narcissist with a bad temper, I know as a child, as I've mentioned before, when my father was like that, I'd be 7, 8 years old, and you could see dad going off the deep end, and that would scare you. That would upset you. And so what you would do at that point is absolutely anything to avoid daddy getting mad. And it's about the same thing that's going on with Trump and his employees too. For whatever reason, they're scared to death of Donald Trump going off the deep end. And unfortunately, these days, it seems like that's all he does. But by giving these people their way, it doesn't fix anything. It just delays the inevitable. Because ultimately, Donald Trump will fail, and then he'll try to blame it on the people who should have said something in the first place and didn't. This is a no-win situation for everybody involved. And we can now see him doing this in the media, on Truth Social, in rallies, on TV. The ex-president appeared angered about efforts to remove him from the 2024 presidential ballot in Colorado, based on numerous reports from conservatives and other legal scholars that say the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution automatically bans Trump from holding office. We know this because he's made multiple comments about this. He's even said it was unconstitutional. Well, Donnie, you've never read the fucking Constitution. How would you know anything, whether anything or not is constitutional? You don't know. You just say whatever you think is going to benefit you and assume everybody's as stupid as you. Well, unfortunately for Donnie, that's not the case. There are very few people that are dumber than Donnie. Now, after being arrested following his federal indictment for his alleged efforts to overturn the 2020 election, Donald Trump was required to sign a document stating he was aware of all the conditions of his release. But that doesn't mean anything. Contracts don't mean anything to Donald Trump. But it makes clear Trump cannot attempt to obstruct a criminal investigation, tamper with a witness, victim, or informant, retaliate or attempt to retaliate against a witness, victim, or informant, or intimidate or attempt to intimidate a witness, victim, juror, informant, or officer of the court. Now, violating any of these foregoing conditions of release may result in your immediate issuance of a warrant for your arrest, a revocation of your release, an order of detention, a forfeiture of any bond, and a prosecution for contempt of court, and could result in imprisonment, a fine, or both. Now, what I just read there is kind of interesting. We have the courts reluctant to put Donald Trump in jail because of the things he does, even though he's violating these rules every day, any day. But there's one other party involved in this mess that I would have to think is a little nervous right now. Now, you remember billionaire Donnie Trump didn't come out of his pocket with the 200 grand. He came out of his pocket with 20 grand, 10%, and then he had a bail bondsman put up the remaining $180,000. Actually, he put up the $200,000, $20,000 goes in the pocket of the bail bondsman. Donnie doesn't get that back. But interesting, in that list of things that I said could happen is forfeiture of any bond. Now, we know how Donald Trump is about paying people back, but maybe that's what the judge does. I feel it's going to be hard to put him in jail. A fine isn't going to affect him. So maybe forfeiture of the bond. This may not upset Donald Trump immediately, but the bondsman is going to be pissed because they're going to take that $200,000 and put it in their pocket. So the bondsman would have lost $200,000 and gained Donald Trump's $20,000. That means they're $180,000 in the hole. Now, bail bondsmen don't see the humor in something like this. In fact, maybe they'll hire Dog the Bounty Hunter to go after Donald Trump. That would be intriguing. He'd probably think it was Marjorie Taylor Greene as he was coming up to talk to him, and that may be the perfect cover. Now, defiant Trump appearing to ignore warnings from judges and a document he signed making clear he could be jailed if violated the conditions of his release, on Friday went after special counsel Jack Smith, U.S. Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, former FBI General Counsel Andrew Weissman, former U.S. Ambassador and Board Chair of Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, that's CREW, Norm Eisen, CREW itself, as well as former U.S. Attorney Joyce Vance. Vance and Weissman are both well-known MSNBC analysts, two people I have a lot of respect for. Now, the group, this is what Donald Trump said, the group suing me in Colorado to ridiculously try and unconstitutionally keep me off the ballot. I'm leading against DeSanctimonious by almost 50 points and beating Crooked Joe big. Is Trump deranged crew composed of many slime balls and groups like Norm Eisen through Brookings, or just security, Andrew Weissman, Joyce Vance. They are perhaps illegally working with Weissman's acolyte, Lisa Monaco, at Injustice. I have been beating them for years, including the impeachments. MAGA, wrote the ex-president, who is now facing 91 felony charges in 4 criminal indictments. Now, you have to wonder if any of these people would be in a position to actually sue him for defamation. Donnie has a history of losing defamation case. He's lost 2 to E. Jean Carroll alone. Now, again, it's all about money and may not impact him. But it goes to what I've said before. He's going to have so much shit going on. He can't juggle it. He doesn't have the ability to handle all these things at once. So you just bury him in all this legal bullshit, and he's not going to be able to handle it. In as far as what's happening with the 14th Amendment stuff, to be honest with you, I'm not all that excited about it. I know it could work. I know we only needed 2 or 3 states to make it so Donald Trump can't be on the ballot. What they will do, of course, is they'll appeal it all the way to the Supreme Court. Then we'll have to see what the Supreme Court does. I think there's enough stuff going on in terms of the lawsuits and the criminal trials that 14th Amendment thing won't even be a necessity. Donald Trump won't be the nominee, and he won't be on the ballot. It's just the fucking way it is. He's got too much stuff, and it's not going well for him. Now, Donald Trump said, Crew also sued me on emoluments at my recently sold and very beautiful DC hotel and lost big. I don't think they lost. Trump continued via his Truth Social website. These are bad, radical left people and groups that use the Injustice Department as though it were their own. Well, that sounds familiar, doesn't it, Donnie? You had the Attorney General as your personal attack dog. Lisa Monaco does whatever they tell her to do. They play her like a fiddle. So bad for our once great country. They will have major liability for what they're doing to America. It is working with deranged Jack Smith and others. Election interference at a level never seen before. MAGA. Earlier this week, Crew issued a press release detailing their Colorado lawsuit. Now, what Donald Trump said there amounts to nothing. It's just the rantings and ravings of a fucking lunatic or an idiot. None of that means anything. None of that will do anything. But Donald Trump has to try to do something because he just can't sit still for all this criticism. It's just not in his makeup to do that. So he comes back with things, all of it pretty weak, all of it inaccurate, all of it lies. But that's all he's got. Now, constitutional scholar and former Harvard professor of law, Lawrence Tribe, responded to the lawsuit, calling it the strongest of the suits filed to compel secretaries of state to apply the 14th Amendment's disqualification clause to Trump. The 6 plaintiffs clearly have standing under Colorado law, and ironclad legal and factual research backs up their complaint. Now, the interesting thing is, if this one in Colorado ultimately goes to the Supreme Court and they win and they take Donald Trump's name off the ballot, you're going to feel a groundswell of other states doing the very same thing. And since it cleared the Supreme Court, they won't think twice about it. Now, of course, there's the possibility that the Supreme Court would deny it, but they really don't have any standing to do that. We know that they aren't trustworthy. We know that we can't count on the Supreme Court, but they can only lie so much and go so far. And I guess the best thing to do is worry about the Supreme Court when it gets to the Supreme Court. Let's run it through the process and make Donald Trump's fucking head spin. That's really the best option here. But again, the whole 14th Amendment thing, I'm not as excited about. I think it could happen. I think it should happen. But I think there's so many other things that are are more deadly that are going against Donald Trump. I'm not going to really place my hopes in that. If it works, great. But we've got some criminal trials coming up, and that'll have far more effect on Donald Trump than that attempt to get the 14th Amendment in place. All right, let's talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene. Now, first, she jumped the gun on impeaching President Joe Biden, filing articles of impeachment just after Republicans took control of the House of Representatives. But now she seems to have a change of attitude. Now she appears to be backtracking, the thing that Republicans love to do. Now, Greene, who got bad news on Saturday in the form of a poll showing she is completely unwanted as Trump's vice presidential pick. At one point she was working for that. I'm going to be Donald Trump's vice presidential pick. Now it seems like the Republicans ain't interested, which is neither here nor there, because as I've said before, Donald Trump is no way going to be running for president in 2024. So you can put all your hopes and dreams in being Trump's vice president, but it's going nowhere. You're bound to be disappointed. Now, with this bad news that Marjorie Taylor Greene from this poll, they now, of course, threatening to shut down the government without a Biden impeachment vote. Just a few days ago, she has consistently called for impeachment of not only Biden, but his top officials. Now, honestly, I personally think that this whole thing with the impeachment and with Kevin McCarthy, he's playing MAGA here. MAGA wants to have an inquiry or an impeachment against Joe Biden, right? But they also want to shut down the country. However, they have a problem there. If they shut down the country, the trials and cases still continue on with Donald Trump, but any investigations by Congress into Joe Biden stop. So MAGA's in trouble. They want to shut the country down, but they want to investigate Biden. Kevin McCarthy knows that both of these things are losers. If they shut down the country, the Republicans will be blamed and it will cost them in the 2024 election. If they go ahead and try to impeach Joe Biden, there's no way it's going to pass because most of the Republicans believe that it's a loser and it's a bad idea. The thing about it is if they proceed with the inquiry and then ultimately try to impeach Joe Biden, they're going to be exposed for how weak they are because it won't pass. It won't pass. Now, Kevin McCarthy, knowing this, that the impeachment and shutting down the country is a bad thing, I get this feeling that he's just trying to play a game with this. Now, when he agreed to sign on with the debt ceiling limit, he knew he was going to get some flack from MAGA, and he did. But funny thing is, MAGA did not try to call him out and get a vote of no confidence. You would have thought they would. Now, with this one, if Kevin McCarthy's thinking, and I know that's a lot to ask, but if he's thinking, and I'm him, I would go to MAGA and say, we really shouldn't shut down this country. They'll go, hell no, we're shutting down. And Kevin will say, well, now here's what you got to understand. If we shut down the country, it doesn't affect the trials against Donald Trump, but it does stop your investigations into Joe Biden. So what do you want more? Do you want the investigations to go ahead, or do you want to shut down the country? Because clearly you can't have both here. And that's going to be a tough choice for MAGA. And knowing how they are and how vindictive they are, I have a feeling they're going to want to keep the investigations into Joe Biden. So they'll come to some terms with keeping the government open without too much trouble. So we'll see if that's how he's going to play it. We don't know what MAGA will do. But as I've said before, MAGA consist of like 35 people, and in the House of Representatives, you have 218 Republicans. Why do they have any sway at all? Why do they have any power? Well, because Republican members of Congress are pussy ass bitches. They're fucking cowards, and they're letting this MAGA group push them around in spite of the fact that most Republicans realize it's not in their best interest. Now, on Saturday, however, Marjorie Taylor Greene kind of struck a different note. Our country deserves for Congress to vote for an impeachment inquiry for very important reasons, not a rush impeachment vote, the lawmaker wrote. Here's why. She claimed that her committee work has proven Joe Biden lied to the American people, and not only does he know about Hunter's business deals, he is involved. Fair enough. Where's the evidence? You keep telling us the evidence is coming and we have yet to see it. So forgive me, Marjorie, if I don't believe a fucking word you say. She goes on to say, for some of us, that's grounds enough to go ahead and vote for an impeachment. But I believe we would fail the country if we rush to impeachment because there is more at stake. She continued, adding that it has become evident that there is a vast amount of people in previous administrations, this administration, and federal agencies that all work diligently to cover up unbelievable corruption and crimes committed by the Bidens and Joe himself. Well, we know there was a big cover up in the benefit of Donald Trump too, but somehow you're not mentioning that. She says we need a very tedious impeachment inquiry that allows us to take a deep dive to uncover the traitors within those that conspired together, not only to keep a criminal VP in office, but then work to propel him to the highest office in the land, President of the United States, all by covering up the truth and stopping Biden prosecutions from happening. She concluded, the impeachment inquiry cannot be rushed. It must be done right. No matter how long it takes, patience will be the virtue that will lead us to the traitors within. You see what she's doing. She's backing off of it because she knows it's not a winner. She knows it's not going to help them because there is no evidence and they'll simply be embarrassed at every fucking turn. They can't possibly vote to impeach Joe Biden because when it fails, they'll be exposed for how weak they fucking are. Now, here's a good story. I like this story. Yesterday was Saturday. That's college football day. And as a big surprise, Donald Trump was in Iowa trying to get some more support in Iowa for the caucuses that are upcoming. But Donald Trump is fucking up Iowa. There's a lot of people that don't like Donald Trump. He talks shit about a governor who is incompetent in her own right, Kim Reynolds. But she's very popular there. So with Donald Trump, with all the baggage that he has and talking shit about Kim Reynolds, this isn't working out well for him. And it was perfectly illustrated at the Iowa State college football game last night at Jack Trice Stadium, where he was met with big crowd reactions, as happens anywhere with former presidents. A member of the Trump campaign's communication team shared many videos from his Iowa visit on Saturday. And in one of those clips, there is a very loud booing for Donald Trump as he enters the stadium, in addition to cheers and other crowd noises. However, one of the popular pro-Trump accounts on Twitter, Il Donaldo Trumpo, shared a video of the event with completely doctored audio, adding into the video to replace the loud boos. Yeah, no one's ever going to notice that. Conservative town hall writer John Hassan was one of the first to realize the clip going viral on MAGA right featured audio and had been altered or replaced. Republican communications veteran Matt Whitlock also noted the altered audio and soon posted a comparison of the clips. Pro-Trump accounts by the dozen shared and reshared the doctored clip to claim there was no booing. They want to tell you something that truly happened didn't happen. That's oh so classic Donald Trump. Now, moreover, other videos taken from the scene show that some of the crowd was indeed booing Trump, while others countered the boos with cheers. But the clip with the doctored audio wasn't from a separate location or a different moment, but the precise same as the original video shared by Martin. So what they did is they basically took out the audio, added other audio with cheers and such, and think they're going to get away with that. Well, clearly they didn't. Notable conservative media right company, Right Side Broadcasting, also tweeted out their own footage, which was the exact same moment and almost the exact same angle as the one shared by the Trump campaign. And even with their noise canceling microphones that are used for interviews, the boos were clearly audible. Now, other videos taken from the scene show that some of the crowd was indeed booing. There was one such picture, and I think a video too, that I saw that I thought was very compelling, absolutely compelling. And that was Donald Trump. I think he was in the press box or something, standing out looking over the crowd. There's a camera taking footage of that. And just in front of the camera, there were a bunch of people in Iowa and Iowa State paraphernalia, and they were all giving Donald Trump the finger. That's going to be a perfect campaign picture. Go on the internet, Google that shit, Google Trump getting the finger in Iowa, and you'll see this picture. And I'm guessing the Lincoln Project and some of the others will be using that in some of their commercials. It's hilarious. Donald Trump thinking he's king of the world, and you've got a dozen people flipping him off. Yeah, they love you in Iowa, Donnie. It's fucking beautiful. Now, Rudy Giuliani claimed that former President Donald Trump was really, really upset upon hearing the news that his former White House trade official, Peter Navarro, had been convicted of contempt of Congress this week. And he should be. That's the first domino to fall. And once that falls, there'll be others after that, and then it will get out of control. Now, Giuliani said on Newsmax, you know, it's hard to get upset anymore with all the things that are done, but this one really got to me. Host Eric Bolling on the Balance Friday. I was with former President Trump when we found out about it yesterday, and I've got to tell you, he was really, really upset about it. Giuliani argued it's one thing to get persecuted yourself. It's another thing to see your family, your friends, and the people working for you getting persecuted like this, as if Donald Trump gives a fuck about anybody but himself. Giuliani goes on to say, I mean, this is absurd. There are about 1,000 people you could have prosecuted for that over the last 5 years alone. Think of all the people in the Obama administration literally in contempt of Congress. There wasn't one indictment in the Biden administration over 8 years. Don't know what you're talking about, Rudy, but clearly that's why you're going to jail, because you spew things out of your mouth that aren't true, and either you don't understand it or you're just an evil motherfucker. Either way, you deserve to go to jail. Now, he continued, this is a legitimate question about executive privilege. No, it's not. It's not. The only person that can issue executive privilege is a sitting president. Donald Trump at the time and currently not the sitting president. Donald Trump not only isn't the sitting president, he will never be sitting president ever again. Rudy says, let it get resolved in court. Yeah, that's always the answer. Keep appealing and appealing and trying to drag things out and continually losing. If the court says he has to testify, he'll testify. And if he doesn't, then you put him in jail. I don't know if this has ever been done before without waiting for a court ruling. There's all kinds of court fucking rulings. Now, after Bowling asked Giuliani whether he was concerned he would be treated the same way in Fulton County, Giuliani said this: "Am I concerned? Of course I am. Do I think I'll get a fair trial? I mean, so far, no. I mean, they leaked everything. Now they're leaking the former report that is supposed to indict twice as many people. So how come we are the ones selected to be indicted and not the others? I mean, not that I wanted them indicted, God forbid, but what kind of process? I've never heard of a process like this. Really, Rudy? You're a former DA. What do DAs do? If they've got 40 people that they can indict, but only 20 get indicted, what could possibly have happened? Well, it could be that some of these motherfuckers flipped on you and Donnie Trump and Mark Meadows and all the rest. It could be that. It also could be that DAs, and Rudy Giuliani should know this as well as anybody, will only go after those things they believe are slam dunks, the things that they feel pretty confident they're going to win. If there's any question about it, they'll usually avoid it, which I don't like, because either you committed a crime or you didn't. And if you did, you should have to pay the price. But nonetheless, that's the way the DA handles things. They don't want to take on potential losers. They want to win everything they go after. And it's not unusual for a DA not to indict everybody that had the potential to be indicted. The other thing is about those people that weren't indicted by Fani Willis is this: just because Fani Willis didn't indict them, like Mark Meadows, not so much Mark Meadows. What am I thinking of? Mark Meadows did get indicted. He wasn't able to move his court case to federal court, and that's fucked up a lot of people. But okay, I'm thinking of Lindsey Graham. Why wasn't he indicted? Well, there could be a good reason for it. And like I said, maybe she felt like she didn't have the evidence in order to do that. But maybe this: here's something to think about. No doubt Elvin Bragg in the Manhattan district, Jack Smith on the federal level, and Fani Willis have kind of collaborated, talked about these things. A lot of what's going on overlaps, whether it be timing or actual crimes that they're prosecuting. They could very well have worked some things out. Now, we have a problem with Lindsey Graham particularly. He is a sitting member of the Senate. That poses all kinds of problems for prosecuting him. And maybe Fani didn't feel comfortable in doing that and thinking that she might fail in that regard because of all the loopholes that a sitting senator has. That said, maybe she didn't indict him because after talking to Jack Smith said, "Listen, man, don't worry about Lindsey. I got him." Because it would be more likely for the feds to indict a sitting senator. It's never been done before, as far as I know. But if they're going to do it, it's probably better that Jack Smith does it on the federal level than Fani Willis doing it on the state level. All of these people have tons of evidence against them. We know the special grand jury found that Lindsey Graham should be indicted, yet Fani Willis didn't indict him. We don't know exactly what's going to happen with Lindsey Graham. Did he flip? Wouldn't surprise me because he's a weak ass bitch. But it could also mean that Jack Smith has got him in the sights and is going to indict him with his upcoming superseding indictments. There's more indictments coming from Jack Smith. We don't know who. We all have hopes and dreams of who it might be, but we don't know for sure. So we have to wait to see. The good news is the grand jury in D.C. got back together earlier in the week, and something's cooking. Something is happening. So we'll see how that all shakes out. All right, we are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. Again, a reminder, if you want to send an email or want to be on the show, all you have to do is email me at rationalboomer@gmail.com, and we'll read your emails, and we will set up a time for you to come on and be a guest on the program. So I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.